I would like to welcome you all here. Thank you for joining us in the lunchtime, but because one of the panelists, Nico, is on the jury, we also limited with some of the time scope that we have. But I would like to welcome you all to this session that we're doing in collaboration with EULAC Cinema of the European Union, of the European Commission. And I will now hand the microphone to Yago Mateo from Producers Network at the Marché du Film in Cannes, who will introduce the panel and be your thoughtful moderator. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Hugo. I would like to invite, please, the speakers to join me so we can start with the panel. So Emilia, Radu, and all of you. So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this panel, Unexpected Allies, Audiovisual Cooperation between European Union and Latin America for Diversity in Cinema. First of all, thank you so much, Hugo, for the chair. And for the invitation also. It's a pleasure to be here, but we are here also thanks to the EULAC Cinema Initiative that brings together Latin America and Europe, and it's focused on youth, diversity, and gender. We will have the time to talk later in detail about the program with Alessandro. However, I would like to start by one of the words of the title, which is unexpected. Unexpected, that basically reflects when something is not following the common rules, the common path, that it's a surprise. And the professionals that we have today with us, they're going to show us how indeed it's possible to collaborate between Latin America and Eastern Europe based on their own experiences. And I would like to start asking a first question to Radu. You're a Romanian producer, very active in the film industry. Before you did more short films, now focused on feature films. And you recently produced the film I Only Rest in the Storm. It's a production from Portugal in co-production with France, Brazil, and of course Romania. A very particular movie that was presented in Un Certain Regard in Cannes. Tell us, why did you decide to be on board this project, especially regarding the co-production with Latin America?
Hi, everybody. The way I started my career was very peculiar from the beginning, because the shorts that I was doing were quite different from the films that were being produced in Romania by the Romanian New Wave. So I was engaging in projects that were more dealing with magic realism, with genre elements, using the strong language of the minimalistic wave, but with taking my taste and the films a little bit farther away. With Pedro Pino, I met in Cannes in 2017 after I saw his debut film, The Nothing Factory, which is a brilliant film, a simple, brilliant film. And then there was a set of coincidences that led us to be part of the film. 2 months later, we met the producer, Tiago Hispania from Terra Treme, from Portugal. We met him in Locarno. We were having shorts in the same competition. And then a couple of months after, I met to be the leading producer, Filipa Reis from Uma Pedra no Sapato, as we were colleagues in a producer workshop. And without knowing each other, we were talking about the project that we were doing, and we realized that we are part of the same project, as she was just getting into the structure. And that somehow led us to try to have our first ever minority co-production, to be this crazy project coming from Portugal and Brazil, and to be shot in Guinea, Bissau and Mauritania.
And maybe you can tell us a little bit more about the challenges that you faced, or the smart decisions while making possible this collaboration with many partners.
It's very difficult to really dive into this, because it hasn't been classical collaboration. First, due to the fact that Romania have never been engaged into such a project before, but we were lucky enough for our CNC and the authorities to be a little passive about it, because Romanian producers weren't really engaging back then into minority co-productions. So they allowed us to play ball as we wanted to. And then the biggest challenges we faced were, of course, due to the pandemic, because we had to shoot in the African continent for 6 months during COVID, with a big decision to shoot everything on film. The film was being processed in Romania, so it was quite a logistical challenge. But honestly, I didn't feel that we really had issues. I think we had a tough project on our hands, which we knew from the start. But with a crew of producers and with Pedro being super thoughtful for his project, but also understanding the environment that we were working in, I think that made things very, very easy.
We have also today with us Nicolás Celis. He's a Mexican producer, very, very active. You have participated in films very well known as Rome or Emilia Pérez. I guess it's a long journey to get where you are nowadays, but maybe you can give some advice to newer producers or producers that are working maybe on lower budget films that would like to follow your path. So what would be the advice for them?
So good evening. I'm very happy to be here, and I'm based in Mexico. Pimienta Films has already 17 years old since it's founded, and I think that most of our films are co-productions. We really like to be partners in the films we like, so that's kind of our principle. No matter what, or the share of the pie is ours. Sometimes, like in Emilia Pérez, we were small partners in this journey because we really liked the project. I wanted to work with Jacques, and I feel that that has been a compass for us to choose projects, because it doesn't start on the money or how to make a story I don't connect. It starts with like a curiosity of finding a director that we feel that we can make the journey. We don't care about the trajectory of the directors, because like we've learned during the time that making movies it's really hard, and we want to work with people that have an authentic voice. And that sometimes sounds easy, and everybody could be eligible for that. But I feel that we've managed as producers to really dive in and see if the directors really, are telling us the truth, of what they want to achieve, if they want to connect to a broader audience, if they care about an audience, if their journey is authentic for us, because we're gonna put so much time, so much money. So that's for us. The rule. And for example, with Emilia Pérez, I think it started with a crazy movie, the movie that nobody would finance, the movie that would be a risk, because everybody loves the success of Roma, but nobody would finance it in a way, because it's black and white, it's in Spanish, not known actors, more than 2 hours. But I feel that if you take out the noise in this industry and you see the project, it's perfect, It's like a diamond that a lot of people, maybe that's too obvious to let it pass, because the name of the director would, blow everybody's, mind in terms of financing. But in general, I think that the good projects that we find are very obvious to us, and I just feel that the industry doesn't want risk. They want the success of the risk, but not the journey of that. So for me, sometimes it sounds easy to find or do a good movie, but it's really challenging, and I feel that, that if for the thousands of movies that are made every year, they get into in festivals, and then in each festival you find, I don't know, a handful amount of movies that you really liked, maybe under 5 or something. So I feel that if we find those stories around the globe, I think it's great that we can be part of that. Sometimes with money, sometimes creative input has a value, and sometimes when we come from countries that do not have the funds, sometimes we need to really make our creative input, valuable to the other partners. That, I don't know, not because you're from Europe and you have 500,000 euros makes you a good producer, And sometimes from our countries that we can bring 100,000, for example. And I feel that Latin America and East European countries are kind of the same amount or in similar situations in terms of cost of making movies. So I think that there's a very organic one-to-one or equalitarian participation that we could explore. No?
You were mentioning that risk. How is the balance between finding very big budget films and also giving the voice to unrepresented communities or different stories? How do you find that balance?
For me, the big budget, it's stupid. Like thinking that, I don't know, doing big budget movies makes you a real producer. That's bullshit. Of course, the industry takes you to $10 million, $20 million, 50, because you need cast, because that's, where the world is heading. But I feel that, again, you have to do a good movie. I've done movies of $100,000. I've done movies of different kinds of. There's movies that I've done of a lot of money that would have done with a third of that money and would have been a better movie. So for me, it's just to be honest with my company, with the with the kind of movie expectations I have. Sorry, with the kind of expectations I have with each movie, in order for them to be successful. In some movies I don't need to recoup the money. In some movies I have to position the director because it's their first movie, and that takes you to, okay, should I release the movie in this festival or in this other that would help the movie the most? Maybe you won't sell, but you don't need to sell in this one as much as in others. So, in Pimienta, we have probably 80% of the movies are directed by women since the beginning of the company. So, for example, we're working with Lila Aviles that did Totem, with Elisa Miller that her first short won the Palme d'Or 15 years ago, with Sofia Carrillo's an animation. So Tatiana Hueso, of course, she's, I would say, one of the most important filmmakers in the country. So I feel that it's just the key to find a good idea, a good exploration, and take it to the further, the further degree.
Thank you, Nico. I'm from Emilia Perez. We moved to Emilia Slusconite. The surname is more difficult for me to pronounce. You're a Lithuanian producer. Please let us know, why did you decide to collaborate with producers from Latin America and get involved with these projects?
Okay, thank you for the invitation, first of all. It was great listening to Rado and Nicola of their experience, because I'm embarking on an experience to produce with Latin American countries, and I'll tell you like a short story of how it started for me. So a very good friend of mine, who's a Lithuanian anthropologist writer, moved, that was about 3-4 years ago. We would collaborate on a lot of work, on writing work, moved to Colombia, and he settled in the Pacific coast of Colombia. And then he started writing stories there. And the stories he wrote were about the main characters were essentially European immigrants living in the Pacific coast. And then we started talking, that was about like 3 years ago, we started talking on a movie like based on a true character that we met there, and I really wanted to produce that film. And as it happens for producers, you have a project in development, it's like a pitch, and you start consulting the market or the producers, or you take it to a workshop. And I've started hearing this thing where everyone was saying it's not a Lithuanian film. It's make it a Colombian film, sell the rights, so on and so on. And I thought that idea of hearing that actually so much was ridiculous, and it was practically against everything I stand for. And then the reasons became very political for me. So I think this sort of a way of seeing film is not a Lithuanian film if you speak about emigration. It's practically, it's against everything I stand for. So Eurocentrism, nationalism, and what does it mean that I have to create a film for the state? I would love to believe that we're very far from it by now, you know. So, that triggered for me to deeply understand the industry. Then I started doing these programs that are very helpful, like you have Puentes, and went to Ventana Sur, and so on, and started meeting producers. So now I have that film that we're shooting next year. So we've been actively developing it, casting it, so on. We have partners in Colombia, and doing it with 2 other European countries, because for the moment that's the only system that there's a public policy issue that we have to have the majority of Europe to be involved, and so on. So there's complications, but I mean, I'm happy to hear that examples are there, and they've been possible. So we're going to produce that film, which we're delegate producer of, and then I've started meeting other producers, and we're going to jump on a minority with Argentina, an Argentinian film. So there's 2 projects pending that I'm about to do. So I'm there.
And how do you think that these collaborations fit your creative goals, the goals that you are aligned with? You explained it a little bit, but can you develop?
Yeah. I mean, I would say something similar that Radu said. The films I produced before, they have a lot of genre elements, magical realism. I think it's a personal thing. It's like I connect to the stories, mostly literature I read is Latin literature, I would say. I'm a big fan of that. So it's a personal connection. Yeah, it's a personal connection, and then you just use that, I don't know, sense. And it's just, and again, as I mentioned, it was a very political reason for me, because when someone says you can't do it, then I really want to do it. And if it matches my taste, I'm going to go far for it. So now my whole focus is Latin America, all of a sudden. You know, you just say,
that's good. That's very queer also, like not following the rules, working beyond the system. Thank you, Emilia. We have also today with us Yadna Montilla. You have a project selected in Midpoint Works in Development Focus Queer section that actually you're going to pitch a little bit later. Yeah. Please, can you tell us why you're interested in having on board a producer from Eastern Europe?
Yeah, of course. Hi, so I am from the Dominican Republic. This is like an island in Latin America. So I am more like an emerging producer. So we do have like this film lab. We have really grow in our cinema. But still, when you have independent cinema and really specific stories that have the potential to be universal, you still have to find a way to finance it. So also, I believe that it benefits from the interchange of creative and technical team and crew. So that's like our vision as well. Because yes, you can make film in Dominican Republic, but you often stay in the island. But our vision as me as a producer, but as the director as well, we want to make a cinema that it gets like distributed broader, and that's why we are interested in this kind of spaces that let us to spend and to make it more like appealing to the cinema that we want to make. So that's why we are interested in it. And also, I believe that when I was studying cinema as well, this was the kind of cinema that I was consuming. So I believe that we do have like a lot in common, even though we are so far away. So I believe that's physical, but in reality, we have really a lot in common. So yeah, that's the main focus that we have.
The project is called The House of the Mother. Why do you think it's important at this stage to add on board the international partner?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And it is really important because I believe when you have on board an international co-producer from the early stage, it could be more natural. It could feel like you will start they said this is like a marriage that you have, so you get to know the European partner or the other partner from whichever country, even if it's from Latin America, but they make a bond with the story, and they also want to tell the story, as Emilia was saying, that she said, I want to make this movie, I want to produce it, so that's why when you have it like in an early stage, we can make a natural and real bond. So that's why, because we just don't want to co-produce to have like a cold relationship. It's just because of the money. Like we want to have that, to feel it real, because even though it's just the producing part, I believe that it gets impregnated in the final film. You can feel like this is natural, this is fine, this feels good. He won't intervene in the director vision. He has empathy for what you want to say. He understands the place that you are from. Even though like we are telling a story that is really from the periphery and it's really specific, it also like you can feel the feeling. Okay, this has loneliness. This has like queer childhood. These have themes that are universal, and I understand it, and I want to make like to put a focus on that, and I want to take it broader as you, and I want to accompany you in this journey. So that's what we are looking for, and that's why I believe it's important. Yeah.
And very briefly, because we were talking about it before, why do you think it's important to have the visibility in spaces like Carlo Vivari or Focus Queer to give more exposure to the projects, to find the partners?
Yeah, I believe it's really important because it's just because of the distance. Because we are there over in the other side of the ocean. So sometimes independent creative producer has like this maybe economical hardship to just go there, but these kind of spaces help us to first meet the people, to make the bond, and we don't have these kind of spaces in there, so we just like, we are a little bit, it looks like we are close, but we are not. Like, I know other producers from Dominican Republic and for the region that really want to co-produce in Europe. So this is why these kind of spaces are really necessary, and it helps us as well in our countries to also get the financing. So yeah.
Thank you. So we had the vision of the producers, but it's not only about producing, it's also about creating the good environment to do so. And that's why, Alessandro Rossi, maybe you can tell us more about the EU-LAC Cinema Initiative, what it consists on, and what are the main goals that it wants to achieve.
Thank you, Yago. Yeah, it's a bit strange to see a diplomat or a bureaucrat now in a producer's debate, but the idea is really that I would like colleagues here now our colleagues because we're here, in the room to feel that when you're producing stories, you're producing culture. When you produce culture, in fact, you are multiplying the occasions for bridges also across people and across borders. And that's what we really felt when preparing the last summit of the 60 heads of state and government that met 2 years ago in Brussels, all the Latin American and Caribbean ones and the European ones. And when we compiled across the different policy actors in the European Union a set of proposals of what the two regions should do together, one that popped out as the most convincing one in the international cultural relations was exactly to get together the creative industries around the audiovisual cooperation. And though, as we felt that there are common values in these productions across the two regions, especially when we look at youth, gender, diversity, we have similar language to approach to it, which is not as similar between other regions. So a value-driven, in a way, audiovisual production, we think is an asset not only for the industry, because it can reach out to many other audiences, and it's not only an asset in the sense that push back against the more commercial-oriented, say, invasion of products, but it's also an asset for really the international relations between the two regions towards, when they seek to do things together in the face of common challenges. And in promoting that, we thought, okay, as we have a limited time, because at the end of the day, we only managed to have it for this year, we thought, let's try to pick up the minds, the ideas, but also the problems and the challenges of the stakeholders in the industries at all levels if possible. So producers is probably the crucial level in the middle of the process, but of course there are the creators themselves, there are the actors, the youth who want to enter into the industry, and on the other side you have those who then need to make it available for the audiences, the exhibitors, but also the distributors, and you name it. And the idea was, okay, let's see first what's out there. And to our surprise, this space where already festivals, events look at the other region, so was already quite populated. We had a relatively quick study, very well done, I see, but it could be, of course, with more time, even richer. And over a month of work, already we discovered over 60 events that yearly, combined Latin American ones, European ones, look at the other side in a way or another. So even the opportunities were richer than what we thought initially, and I have the feeling also that sometimes even among professionals, there's a perspective that is kind of lost, because once again, as it was visible, we build a lot on personal relations, but sometimes the big picture kind of escapes us, right? And so we said, okay, for the first half of the year, let's go and propose to the main festivals that we could reach out and could have already predisposition, a debate on some angle of this relation that could add elements and identify challenges that then we could try to propose to policymakers. And again, we are a diplomatic service in the External Action Service. We can only propose to others who really do the policies, and so also to manage expectations. But we had discussions in Berlin at the film market. We had it also on the other side of the Atlantic, in Cartagena de Indias, in Colombia, in Buenos Aires. In Europe, of course, we had to have it in Cannes. We had it also in more specialized festivals like San Sebastian and Malaga. And what came up was quite a complex picture. There isn't the silver bullet, but a lot of the difficulties, as we are hearing also from this debate, could benefit by having this whole area more under the spotlight. And I think also there is a challenge for, and this is said, let's say, from an external point of view to the industry, if you allow me this, a challenge for all of you, also industry professionals, to maybe break some silos also sometimes between the different steps, and feel really that all together, creators, producers, those who provide training, the festival organizers, in this probably historical moment, you're defending all together a space for independent creativity. Because it's one of the things that in our society is under attack in a way in this phase, and we need a bit more maybe to work together into that, and looking at Latin America and the Caribbean as a region where we can really be unexpected ally can give us also more strength in the face of, let's say, other forces in the market or in the industry that could risk to reduce this independence. I invite you to keep watching this space, because we would like in the second part of the year to make, in a way, a summary or to extract the key policy messages from all these debates, including the one today. And part of these messages will for sure be how we should simplify rules for co-production, having them more easily to cross borders, also because Latin America and the Caribbean can be both a potential partner and a potential market for Central and Eastern European cinema in a way that sometimes is, underestimated. And that will be for sure part of the key message we'd like to bring up. But we would like also to bring them up on the score of initiatives that would call new audiences to look at this space. We'll try to do it through a cooperation with the online Latin American Film Festival. There is a platform that some of you may know. It's called Retina Latina. Of course, a lot of that is in Spanish and Portuguese films. We'll try, and we are building a program with them so that this edition of their festival, which is dedicated to youth audiences, so under 18, will have also some European and European Latin American co-productions, so that both youth in both continents can, let's say, have access to the production of the other continent. And then we'll try to partner up so that the European Cinema Nights that you could have heard of, that is nearly appointment at the beginning of December of independent European cinema movie theaters, will in fact be dedicated in Europe to Latin America and the Caribbean, and there in at least 12 countries also to European cinema.
Okay. I would like now to open a little bit the discussion and to ask you all guys a first question that it's why you believe it's important to connect more Eastern Europe and Latin America for collaboration or co-productions. Maybe we can start with you, Radu.
For Romania is even more, I mean, I'll start from Romania and then expand to Central Eastern. Romania is the Far East family member cousin of the Latin language. So it comes super easy for us to connect culturally and socially with first, in my experience, Italian and Spanish territories. But then once I've been engaging with filmmakers, producers from Latin America, and even more once I've started traveling there to join them for the shootings, for work, for developing, I realized that I feel closer to Latin America than to some of the Western countries. And I don't think it's just a language barrier, but I think we are sharing a coincidental past of totalitarianism rule, of military rule, and I think we're getting out. We got out of that at mainly at the same time. But even given the similarities I feel in between the territories, I think there is a lot of things to learn from one another, based on the similarities which can make the dialogue, the collaboration work and learn even faster. The stories, and then, I mean, Eastern Europe, as you were mentioning, is having similar services values. For example, for us, for Romania, is almost impossible. I have never, for example, co-produced with Germany because of the values of the services, which is very hard to match to the ones we're having. It's always a debate on that. So most of the countries I'm working, and I've been working in South America, they do match. We match the budget very easily. We tend to have the same production design way of working. And yes, and then there are the stories. And I think for us as, I mean, having the experience, I'm the kid of co-production, so all my films have been done in co-production so far, which is super exciting, but at the same time I think we need to take this experience that we had and we gather from Europe in terms of structuring partnership and long-lasting relationships as marriages, as has been said, and get a little bit out of our comfort zone and explore the world better and more. And I think Latin America should be, or I feel that it should be, at least for the Central Eastern part of the Europe, the first step outside Europe.
Maybe, Nico, you want to add something? You have collaborated with Western Europe, but what is missing also to work more with Eastern Europe?
I think we need to find real, co-productions, in the sense that I think that when we start, we think that we need to co-produce with France to get into Cannes, or to, with the main countries in the film industry, which in a way is sad and real. That, I don't know the percentage, but I would say that 90% of the films in Cannes have French exposure, which makes it really hard for the other movies to exist, and be, launched with this huge platform. That really makes a difference. So that's true in a way, but I feel that we're used to, in Latin America, and I would say in these countries, in order to be a producer, you have to do a lot of stuff. And in many rich countries in general, having money makes you comfortable and lazy, which is an opportunity for us to shine, in the sense that, sometimes producing jobs is, submitting a form, knowing the tricks and the hacks to bring the German money plus the Spanish money plus, and be an expert in terms of bureaucratic processes, which it has its value, but I think that the way we have to do those, our movies, is to do all of that, plus really make miracles in executing, the funds, getting the money, getting the movies done, shot, because in some countries, I did one in Costa Rica, which was one of the first movies being there, that it was 35 millimeters, there's no lab, there's no actors, there's no funds, there's, and it's not only how do you get the money, where do you spend it, and so I feel that, from our regions, we become very exposed to experience of all sorts that is very valuable, into making films. So I feel that it's very organic for us to find partnerships that, come from the same place, and also look into the, to the most experienced countries also, because, of course, I think that what I value the most when I co-produce with France, with Spain, with Germany, is their experience also in making films, not only on the funds, but it kind of in the, how to make a solid movie, which is, the next challenge after you manage to make your first movie, or your second, is how to, keep doing movies that can be thought for the next years, because when, I think that in our country sometimes it's like, you make a miracle and you make a first movie, and, and whatever happens to it is what we celebrate. This year we have, for example, the first stop motion film made in Mexico, but which is great, we've succeeded, but then it's like, how can we make the second that it's the best one, or that, and I feel that that's, as producers, is how we can think in the future of, having an ecosystem that can be, sustainable, and that's where I feel that there's a lot of space in co-productions. That, for example, in Mexico, just so you know, and in many Latin American countries, for example, you don't need to have a point system. So as long as you have a Mexican partner, basically, you're eligible to be a Mexican film. So then you can submit to the fund, and that also made us a little bit lazy, because we can get up to $1 million for each film. It doesn't matter if it's a co-production, if it's a first feature. So that has made us very lazy in the past 20 years. First, there was no production. Then we started producing more than 200 films a year. And now our box office sucks. There's no export, we're not exporting movies. And I feel that's why it's important for us to be here and to be in film festival exposed to the exportation of our films. Because at the end of the day, since we've had money in the country, we make movies, but only to look our belly button, like we don't care about an audience. We just want to get rid of that movie to get money for the next one. And we have an industry that works perfectly by not making movies that can go somewhere else.
Very interesting. Maybe Emilia and Yadna, you can tell us why, despite what Nico was saying about those goals, is that important to tell queer stories, underrepresented voices in cinema? Why is it essential, especially nowadays?
I think it's essential, again, probably I'm going to repeat myself, but just not to live in your bubble, and not to think that every film that, for example, is made in one country, be it Lithuania or Latvia, only has people that speak that one language and heterosexual, So I think it goes down to the same issue. We have to include queer, and we have to include stories of migration, and that's under the same umbrella for me. And I think also just adding on how we could encourage that. For example, I understand from a perspective of a Mexican producer why it makes sense to work with France or Spain or Italy, for example. And I don't know where the offices, just so to say, of Ibermedia are, and if I could go with a poster and say include Lithuania in this treaty or include Romania, like we don't have enough, actually, these like financial, political encouragements. So it's just hard to find each other, and yeah, just find a space where you can incorporate a real marriage, yeah, not a marriage based on money, if that makes sense.
Yeah, like I'm thinking like comparing to other countries, our industry in DR, Dominican Republic, is really young, and we still don't have like movies that represent the queer aspect. Like it's really a new theme there. So I'm more like what was saying, that you were saying, sorry, that we might have the money, but it's not that easy with themes like this because we still live, it will be easier when you have like a scheme, for example, a co-production, because they will help you more. But even if you can get to made in the Dominican Republic, it will be like looking at rebellious as well, because it won't be exported. So that's why I also believe that it is important, because we make our cinema more able to be exported as well, but also to be like in the spotlight, and we make cinema because we want to be heard, and because we want to tell a story, because there is like a thing inside of us that we want to express to the world. So that's why, like, to be honest, we want to be heard and we want to show, and it's a universal theme as well. So it's like we know that there are going to be people that will want to see those movies and want to see themselves represented as well. So, yeah.
Maybe, Alessandro, you can tell us why from the EU you decided to put the focus on gender, diversity, and youth. Why were those the main topics to focus on?
Yeah, of course, as many things in policy documents, it's a weird story of how it came to be, but let's take it for the value it has rather than for the background story. Because indeed, I think if you look at the audiovisual language, that you kind of see when you see a Latin American or Caribbean production, I think as European we do feel that we are quicker in the story. We do understand in a way a lot of the values behind the actors, whatever the characters' behavior, in a way that it's more difficult with other cultures. I mean, this is undeniable, there is this deep, let's say, connection in terms of values. But what we found is that when we look at how these values should be defended, even expanded in terms of rights in the world or in the globe as such today, we do find ourselves, and so not only in cinema, but also in UN fora, for example, that we, even sometimes without a lot of political effort that we should put a lot more in, we find side by side with Latin American colleagues defending a plural view of gender, defending a push for women's participation and equality, being it in the job market, including in the creative industries, of course, and in general a respect and a defense of diversity that, again, we need allies for. And audiovisual production is nowadays, again, seen from a user point of view. One of those aspects of cultural production that is more influential in reaching very different kind of groups of population, etc., and to reproduce those values in a way, to motivate to defend them. And in a world where the expansion of social media has put each of us in our own bubble, going together to watch a movie and to discuss about it is exactly that kind of cultural production that gets each of us out of ourselves and more ready to challenge also what doesn't work in this world. So youth is also, and this I think we share it with the Latin American perception, where we do expect, in fact, the new ideas and the novelties that help us to solve problems which are more and more new, and we cannot rely on our old politicians alone to solve. So I think all those elements add the value that needed connecting with this push into, as Emilia was saying, at the end of the day, the moment you get out of your, let's say, narrow national view, you realize that defending the diversity that comes from different languages, from immigrants, it also means defending a diversity that comes from different gender orientation or from different social classes and so on and so forth. So the issues are, in our view, very much linked. And we really hope that with this campaign we'll spur more collaboration between the different stakeholders in the cinema industries on both sides of the Atlantic.
Thank you. Nicolas, you were mentioned before that sometimes regarding the model that we have nowadays, we look only to our belly. But do you think that bringing international partners also can bring us to new audiences, especially for those unexpected new partners?
Yeah, definitely. I feel that, you know, with every movie I've started getting more experience as everybody, but I feel that bringing international partners helped me also to understand the size and scope of the stories, because, you know, there's, in my case, that I don't direct, but that I work with directors that they authentically, they don't care, and there's nothing to do, you know, because, and I don't want to work with them, you know, because I think that sometimes we're so immersed in our own story and our own genius that it's really toxic to the industry, because I feel that, you know, I've been in movies that the authors tell me like, hey, this is not an adaptation, it's just an inspiration. It's like, what the hell are you talking me, you know? It's an adaptation, even if you chose this or this big, you know, but sometimes, you know, I realize that by having partners and having, you know, a broader experience, it helps to position, you know, the story in time and place. Because for me, I try to start from the end, which is and backwards, in the sense that I want to make movies that exist for long periods of time. You know, like, how do you make movies that really survive pass of time? And in terms of, you know, subjects, in terms of, you know, that you do a movie in 2025 that will come out in 2026 or 27 or 28, and you don't know exactly the world, how is it going to be. But I feel that having that vision and having that ambition as well helps you, you know, to make the right decisions. And you know, I've been in conversations sometimes with filmmakers that is like, oh no, I'm not gonna change this because it's too obvious and this, but at the same time it's like we need to make clear that the audience understands, and there's always a very thin line of by being very academic or becoming, you know, to giving the food in the hand. But I think that there needs to be a delimited perimeter where you can discuss on how really to take movies to another degree, because, you know, like once you have some years of experience, you realize that everybody in this industry loves what we do. This, you know, the sales agents love watching movies, the festival programmers wants to, you know, find the jewels or push the career. So it's not a Machiavellic force inside of, you know, just friends helping friends. Of course, there might be exceptions, but I feel that everybody wants to make a good movie and survive in, you know, with distributing these films and take it to the right audience. And I feel that co-producing really keeps your mind and eyes open, because, for example, when you prepare a submission to France, more than where you're going to spend it or not, you realize that their fund is very script focused, which is really important. Because in other countries would be maybe something else. Your friends, the companies that are going to sponsor you, etc. And in France it's script-based. And you're going to compete with the biggest filmmakers in the world that going for the national fund. And then you have to work on the script. And some of our funds, for example, are not rigorous on the script. You know, so sometimes just going to France makes the filmmakers work on their script. You know, even if you get the fund or not. And sometimes working on the script is not how do I make a good movie. It's just like putting the person to sit down and do the work. Not parties or not pretend that they worked. It's just time, you know? And I always say that, you know, like I like to put into movies, you know, time, work, and talent is the last one, because the talent is always ambiguous and abstract. But time and work, you can measure it. So co-productions make you work, translate the materials, have good quality translations, to really think the budget in advance. If you're doing it by yourself, you say, okay, how much is the money I can get from my national fund? $1 million. Okay, the movie cost $1 million plus the 20% I have to bring to the table, which is going to be the investment of my time that I will give away, or my office, or my camera, and I will do the movie with this amount. And the budget is equal to that. But when you co-produce, you start thinking and start sitting down and thinking, okay, would I benefit from bringing a Danish composer, or I don't know, special effects or visual effects artist from, you know, Romania, and then you start, you know, working on the film. And I think that that's having a lot of work that elevates, you know, the movie already.
Thank you. Just a quick question for you, Radu, because we were talking about the audiences, and especially young audiences. What do you think that we can do to reach those difficult audiences that are like a chimera to find in the cinemas?
I would start with a short story. My son, when he was 5, like 3 years ago, started to be curious about what I do as a profession, and it took me like 2 days to explain to him what a producer does, and he kind of got it, I think. And then came the obvious question, which unfortunately I wasn't really expecting, like, show me your films. And I realized that I have nothing to show to him. Out of 30 shorts and a bunch of feature films, fiction, documentary, I have nothing to show to him. Either violent, either adult, focused, or either too philosophical for him to simply understand. And I matched that with everything that I was hearing from the industry, from the workshops I was attending, from the markets. And in the last 15 years, I've been witnessing how the target groups of our films, of the art house films, is aging. So like 15 years ago, we were targeting 30, 35 plus, and now we're going 40, 45 plus. And it's easy to imagine where would that take us in 15 years. So it's not that good. And combining these thoughts, I realized that we have to bring to young audiences stories that are done with the cinematic language we use for the art house films we're already doing. So not using, not trying to push the commercial value of the Anglo-Saxon cinematic language to them to be easier to reach them, but to like really do art house films for kids. Because once they will be engaging, and I can look into, I can see that in my kids, once they start to be engaged from an early age into a specific language and a specific cultural thing, they can really grow up with it. While if we're gonna just wait for them to grow up, for them to watch our movies, I think that's a losing bet. And it's a sure thing to, we might, our way of working might disappear if we're not really looking into young audiences and doing content specifically for them.
I want to add to that. I would love to believe that doing films for young audiences is the only possible way to reclaim cinemas, hopefully to push out major studios and give more slots to independent productions. Yeah. And I honestly think that's the only way to do that.
Emilia. We have to little by little wrap up the session, but I would like to ask all of you how your personal values have influenced the stories that you decided to support. If you can tell us briefly, all of you.
Okay, So, well, I believe that I am a person that is kind of a little bit positive in a way that when I start to make films from my friends in the film school, and I believe in those visions, and that would be like positive in that way. So probably that's like the best value that I add to the narratives. And when I pick a project, first I have to feel like a really like movement in my heart. I know that's kind of cheesy and romantic, but it is like that. And then I see the vision, and then I see the potential, and that's when I say, okay, now this movie is already made, let's use like Mateo to make it physical, because you have it in your head, it's clear, and it has a lot of potential. So that's practically what I do. Sorry if it's romantic, but it is. I'm a really romantic person, but I believe that maybe because of my background in law, because I'm a lawyer as well, I learned how to create the tools or to make the opportunities to bring those ideas to life. So that's it, yeah.
A romantic lover that's very unexpected. But
yeah, and no, I think that, I believe that producers are filmmakers as well and creative people, and I think that we can bring also, and we have power to choose which stories are told and how they're told. So in a way, it's a big responsibility. For example, you know, before Emilia Perez, I used to do like really truthful movies about what happens in Mexico, for example, with Eli Bayamate Escalante, that was kind of the biggest hit in terms of the violence with narco before it was then turned into like the biggest subject on TV, on narco series by Netflix, and tons of content that was romanticizing the violence. I did Sujo, which was also last year very, very important, or Tempestad, Prayers for the Stolen, and a numerous amount of movies that kind of touch important subjects. But I was realizing that, you know, like we live those stories every day, and people do not want to see like broader audiences that in the cinemas. So when I read Emilia Perez, I was excited, and it's worth a masterclass and discussions about the film from different points of view and perspectives. But you know, that for me that was a possibility of touching these subjects, because at the end of the day, movies do not change the world, unfortunately. But I felt that they change the world, the way we see the world, or people see the world, or can affect that. And I felt that Emilia Perez had the possibility to have those subjects there and those themes that could be useful to discuss if they were used, you know, like and that could connect to an audience, which I felt that we needed to find ways, not only to say this is the truth, and this is an important movie, and this is an important message, and sometimes that can become pamphletary, but it was great that, you know, I feel that we're evolving every time with every movie, and how to really try to reach an audience and bring our, you know, point of view of things, because sometimes I would say from our countries the good news come from cinema, you know, and how we can export our stories, and, you know, what happened with Flow, for example, it's amazing, you know, like really, it's in a movie that everybody is proud, even like if it was of our own, you know, and I feel that that's why producers, you know, selecting movies can be very important in this journey.
I don't know if Emilia,
okay.
do you want to quickly?
Very quickly, I feel like I feel very responsible as a producer, because each film is a small act of rebellion, you could say. Whatever you choose to create a movie on is, it's just very important, and the current political climate is scary. It's like, so if you could, with our job, we can show our values for our films. So this is the best way to be like political and help the society to, I don't know, the politics and all of that is very much run by men, a lot of men, and it's too much.
I've always been super dynamic and out of my place, so I don't really like to be in a comfort zone. I always try to find my way outside the comfort zone, because I'm also curious about all sorts of things. So cinema really gives me the platform to be able and to have the time to deepen my knowledge into all the different subjects, matters I've been working on. And I also think that we're living in a world where people are only reading headlines and social media being so weaponized as we have seen in the last couple of years. I think cinema can make a difference if we work around to really connect and rebuild our connection with the audiences. Because the projects that we are, most of us are doing, would give a kind of more realistic perspective to the audiences rather than the feed that they are taking from the online thing, whatever is happening right now. So I think we should really be aware of that and make things matter. And of course, with a little of political help into that.
We take the message. Alessandro is not in everything. And before we finish, I would like to give the floor to the audience in case you have any question that you would like to share.
Yeah, first of all, I would like to really, I really appreciate this space and that these conversations and these spaces are happening. I think it is a very important thing, and it has been really enlightening to hear all of your perspective. I would just like to add that from my perspective as a filmmaker, as a creative person, I think it is important to understand that in the region and practically everywhere in the world, we are sharing a colonial past and we are sharing so many things. So it's important that we are all involved in our representation. And I think that is particularly important when talking about co-productions. Like we also have our own point of view as a region, as Latin America. And I feel like often, very often, these things are being told from the other's perspective. So it's about, to me, it's about bringing everyone who is involved to the conversation so that we can all be represented, because it is something that affects all the stories, even those stories that are apparently not about that colonial, about those relationship of powers. So, yeah.
Thank you. Any other question, last question or comment? No? Well, in that case, thank you so much. Thank you, Carlo Vivari, and see you all in the cinema rooms. And let's bring more diverse stories to the cinemas. Thank you.
Thank you.